On to title and escrow.
Now this is the most, we skip over this section so routinely once we've identified who our escrow company is. And guys, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you're most likely to get sued because you didn't fully investigate things that come with a preliminary title report.
Definitely.
So make sure if you're in the metro area, you're working with a title company or an escrow company that you can actually have a conversation with that title person, especially if you're dealing with something that's a meets and bounds property, so you can get into the CC&Rs, you can map out what's going on in your Schedule B requirements or your Schedule B exceptions. It makes a huge difference. And if you're dealing with somebody who's not used to vacant land, you could be in hot water.
Yeah, if your escrow officer isn't comfortable with vacant land, they're not familiar with it, I would seriously say, okay, who in your office does it? Because typically it's going to be a senior escrow officer that's way more experienced. And a lot of times, they need to send stuff down to their legal department to take a look at. So if you can't catch that, I actually had an occasion in the last year where the easement was separated into two pieces. Two separate people owned it, but nobody on the road had the same names as the easements. So they had physical access, but I kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. The legal department finally took a look at it. They didn't have legal access because that easement had never been passed on to somebody, and Maricopa County had foreclosed on it for taxes.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Yeah, fortunately, I was representing the buyer on that one, so we just walked away.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that can happen. You need to, again, if you have a question, you need to ask your escrow officer for the answer, and if they can't get the answer, they have a legal department that can clarify it. It's just really important.
It's absolutely critical. Very similar to Jan's story. I was going through the prelim with my buyer, and we were, we got to the point.
You go through the prelim with your buyer?
I go through the prelim with my buyer.
What a surprise, Holly!
I know. Shocking, I know. I don't just get it and stick it in a drawer and expect my buyer to read it and understand, because they have 5 days to review and call it quits. So we get the prelim, we're going through it, and we asked the title examiner to help us with the CCRs because it didn't look like the covenants and restrictions had been filed properly. We went back 3 chains of title. They had never been properly filed, so as a result, the parcel that we ended up buying is worth more because we have less restrictive. Actually, we have no restrictions as opposed to all the neighbors. And that makes a huge difference. Now we've got something more to sell than the guy next door. So when you start to look at this whole section, get an experienced escrow officer, make sure you've got access to the title examiner and the legal department to go through these crazy things that do come up on dirt.
Plus, and I know you've heard about this too, just because you're walking on that dirt and you're an agent with your buyer, that doesn't mean that's the piece of dirt that's being sold. Sign companies put up signs out in God knows where sometimes.
Agents put up signs.
You need to know which piece of dirt you're buying. You need to have somebody that can read that legal description and say, yes, this is where it is. You need to, we have, with Monsoon and RPR, we've got such great things we can pull. We can pull the aerial and look at it, but you really need to make sure you're not selling your buyer the wrong piece of dirt, because that has happened many times over the years.
Unfortunately, yes, more often than you would think. And friends, your broker does not want that lawsuit, and neither do you. So do be sure you get all of that. That title commitment, title insurance is going to be absolutely critical, as we've discussed. Prorations and expenses and adjustments.
Well, that happens a lot of times with land that's been leased. And land that's been, leased land a lot of times is agriculture. They've grown crops on it. Or somebody's been leasing it because they're boarding horses or something.
Yep.
So there may be an escrow account attached to that land. And the buyer may say, I'm fine with that. So the buyer needs to have copies of the lease agreement. The escrow account needs to be prorated and moved accordingly to the buyer.
Absolutely.
You know.
So make sure, again, you're getting more information from the listing agent before you write the contract, so you've got everything. You're asking for those things as your inspection period begins.
Exactly. We talk about release of earnest money. We all know how that is.
Yep.
If there's he who gets in a fight is at the mercy of the title company to figure that out.
Yes, and can I clear up one thing? There's a misnomer out there that if you stay under $3,500 in earnest money, that you will stay in small claims. Guys, that's not true.
No.
What absolutely happens is the title company, in their sole discretion, has the ability to kick it to Superior Court. And let's talk about the expense of going to Superior Court for anything.
I've never been there, so I don't know the expense, but I know that it's high.
Yes, so let's put it this way. I've never been to Superior Court, but my dad's an attorney. So let's put it this way. That $3,500 or $3,600 earnest money you were squabbling over is gone.
Oh,
you
easily.
don't, it's just gone. So as a result, if you are squabbling over earnest money that is less than $5,000, and you have to go to Superior Court, you need to know that many title companies have a system where they will now start to assess how long they have to hold this money that's in dispute, and it's anywhere from $25 to $100 a month, and that can eat away at your earnest money that you're squabbling over as well. So do keep that in mind. You're not going to small claims court on a less than $3,500 amount.
Exactly. And then we talk about assessment liens. So other than a homeowners association assessment, there could be a lien. If there's a lien from something, a mechanic's lien, the guy who put up the fence has liened the property, that type of thing, that'll be taken care of at close of escrow, typically paid off by the seller. And then we've got that IRS and FIRPTA. What does that mean? We're not going to get into a huge discussion, but if your seller is a foreign national, there is paperwork and there is a process that they need to disclose that, and they need to pay the government because they are a foreign national.
Absolutely. And once again, if your seller is a foreign national, having an escrow company that understands
deals with
FIRPTA, so now you've got a double whammy. You've got vacant land and FIRPTA. It's basically the perfect storm. So you want a really good escrow officer as your partner in this transaction.
Exactly. And that also comes with the next line, Agricultural Foreign Investment Disclosure Act. That comes into farm or agriculture land, 10 acres and more. If it's not reported correctly, the federal government will take 25% of the sales price of the property as a VIG, as a you didn't do this correctly, we're taking your money away from you, Mr. Seller. So it's got to be correctly reported.
Absolutely. Now, some of you are thinking, well, we don't have a whole lot of agriculture. Let's stop right there because we've got everything from hay to going down into the Yuma area, all sorts of farms down in that region. But then let's talk about wine and the new
Good
so
point.
we've got lots of vineyards throughout our state and more coming up every day. So we're seeing a lot of foreign investors. As a result, if you have that opportunity to wade into this and get to sell something, make sure you're doing it properly.
Exactly. And you can 1031 exchange, you can purchase land with the 1031 exchange. Has to go through an expediter for 1031s, fairly simple, just like it is with residential. Just has to be identified, have to agree to it.
Yeah, just follow all your directions from your accommodator. It's great.